So this is my dust collector, which I built around the blower from a Harbor Freight dust collector. And I want to just briefly show the upgrades I made to this blower, including upgrading the impeller or the fan blades, as well as upgrading the size of the inlet and outlet to a full 6 inches. This is the Central Machinery dust collector is the one that I chose from Harbor Freight. It is SKU number 59726. Do be careful and notice that Harbor Freight now has a newer offering, another dust collector that carries their Bauer brand name. That is a different item than the one that I'm talking about here. So this is the blower module from that dust collector. You'll need to remove this big round plate, which is held in place by a whole bunch of little screws, but it comes off very easily. And when you remove that, you get access to the impeller, which is shown here. The impeller is held in place at its center there by a screw and a little round plate. That screw comes off with a simple Allen wrench or hex key wrench. Be careful about which direction it is threaded. Mine was backwards threading, but it does come off very easily. And then you need to remove the impeller itself. And I had done a bunch of reading about people having difficulties with removing the impeller, some discussion about what kind of tool to use, and some people having a lot of trouble getting it off even with the right tool, and some people causing damage from using certain kinds of tools. I went with this item, which was specifically for pulling off a blower fan blade wheel. I'll put a link to this on Amazon in the description. And the bottom line is it's a little hard to show what happened here, but this tool worked really well. I didn't actually end up having any difficulty at all, even though I had been concerned about it from what I had read. And by using this tool, which basically is designed to hold some pressure against the center of the impeller mount while reaching around and grabbing from the sides of that mount. And using this tool, it came off very easily. There is the impeller removed. You will get this in the lower right. You'll see this little metal key that comes off as well. You need to hang on to that key because you will use it with the new impeller. Once you've got the impeller out, you can look behind it and you can see the way that the motor is mounted. That's the axle, or whatever you call it, and the 4 bolts that are holding the motor to the blower housing. And this is the time, if you want to rotate that motor if you need to. You may or may not need to. I did, because I wanted to mount my setup this way, with the outlet of the blower pointing to the right and the switch pointing forward. But when you get the blower assembly, as shown here, the outlet and the switch are pointing in the same direction. So I removed those bolts, took the motor out, and you can see here, this is just how, these are the holes that those bolts go into. And it's real easy to just remove the motor, rotate it 90 degrees, put it all back together, and end up with what I wanted in this case, which is I wanted the outlet to the right while the switch is pointing forward. So back to the issues with the impeller upgrade itself. There are a couple of options that people typically use when they upgrade the impeller on the Harbor Freight dust collector. More commonly, people used to use the one from Rikon. That one has become very expensive, and so I'm seeing more and more people go with an alternative from Wen, and that's what I did. This is the label from the impeller that I purchased at the website shown on this label. and they call it a turbo fan, but nonetheless, it is the impeller you need. And it was not terribly expensive, and it worked out really well. That is the new impeller that I got with when I made the purchase, and this is the new impeller with the old impeller next to it. This picture doesn't really show the size difference very well, and I've noticed this in other people's photos from their upgrades. But the fact remains that the new impeller is larger and a pretty significant upgrade that I think is worth the trouble. And it goes in very easily. You just need to make sure that that little key goes into the slot like it was before when you removed the older impeller. There's a close-up of the center mounting where that key goes into the slot. And then you're going to take the screw in that round plate and insert it back here to hold everything in place, fastening it once again with a hex key or Allen wrench, and it all goes together nicely. Then the next thing I wanted to do was upgrade the inlet and outlet to 6 inches. This is the inlet, and it's just part of that plate that you removed to get access to the impeller. And you can see here from this ruler that the inlet is 4.5 inches or so, and I wanted the full 6 inches, especially with having upgraded the impeller for more airflow. The reason I wanted the 6 inches is because I was going with the Super Dust Deputy XL from Oneida, and it uses 6-inch inlet and outlet, as shown here by measuring the top of that cyclone separator. And so I set about trying to figure out how to upgrade to a 6-inch hole here. And the first thing I did is I turned that metal plate over, and I noticed that the current fitting is attached with some sort of a plate here. And so I thought, well, maybe I could just start by removing that fitting by prying the plate up. And that turned out to be a bad idea. I'm including this simply to report that this doesn't work. I shoved a screwdriver in there and started trying to pry that out, and I broke the screwdriver. So I had to resort to a jigsaw, which is what I was trying to avoid, because I'm not particularly adept with a jigsaw. But nonetheless, that was what I needed to do to get a 6-inch hole in this piece of metal. And, like any jigsaw project, it's not really that bad. You just take your time. And that's the hole I ended up with, which, as I said, I'm not particularly good with a jigsaw, and I think it shows here, but nobody's going to see this. Well, except for all of you folks. But anyway, it worked out fine. This is the scraps of metal that came out when I did the cuts. And the 6-inch hole results in giving me a place to mount this fitting. It's an HVAC fitting that I got from my local home store, Home Depot, I'm pretty sure is where I got this. And the idea is that you just mount it here on the plate, and it has 4 holes that you can use to attach with rivets. I just took a small drill bit to match those little holes, drilled holes through the plate, and went shopping for a rivet gun and some rivets, which I had not used before, but this turned out to be very straightforward as well. I'll put a link to these items in the description also. I did a bunch of planning to make sure that I didn't mess this up, and I tried to make sure that I inserted the rivet such that it would not cause any interference with the impeller. So I wanted to insert the rivet from the inside out. And at the last minute, I forgot to do that, and I inserted it backwards. As it happens, that turned out to be a non-issue, because when I chose the shortest possible rivet that I thought would fit, it it doesn't stick far enough through to cause any problem with the impeller. So I never really needed to worry about that, although I would have if I had chosen a longer rivet. The kit that I got came with several sizes. I chose the shortest one, and so it worked out just fine. And once I realized the mistake I had made by putting them in backwards, I wanted them all to match, so I put them all in backwards. And this was something I probably never needed to worry about anyway. Put it all together, and I was able, by using this fitting and upgrading the inlet to the full 6 inches, I was able to go directly from the blower above down through to the cyclone with a very short distance and no bends. I was trying to avoid anything that would cause inefficiency of airflow, and so I attached this together, taped it up with metal tape, and that worked out very nicely for the inlet going to 6 inches. The other side of the blower is the outlet, and the outlet, as it came from Harbor Freight, was also not 6 inches. It was 4 3/4 or so. And however, the outlet is actually rectangular, and it comes with this plastic fitting. And if you measure the area of the rectangle, it's certainly got enough area to accommodate a full 6-inch fitting. I just needed a replacement for this fitting to give me the 6 inches I wanted. And it turns out that I found a vendor on Etsy that sells exactly what I needed. They 3D print these, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well, because this was not expensive and it saved a lot of hassle and time. The fitting that came from Harbor Freight is the one on the left that I did not use. The one on the right that is installed with my setup is the one I got from the Etsy vendor that worked out very well. So there you have it. This is once again a shot of the dust collector that I assembled around that blower. I'm very happy with how these upgrades to the Harbor Freight blower worked out after everything was integrated into my system with the filter and the cyclone. The performance I'm getting has been very good.